speculative value on chain and to more utility or functional use cases. And we think gaming is going to lead that, primarily with NFT as the asset that activates a lot of these use cases in-game. So we do a lot in terms of grant funding or investing in games to build on Clayton. For developers, we try and make the onboarding journey a lot easier by creating what we call gaming packages for developers, so that they have either APIs or SDKs or toolkits that are available to them with a lot of documentation as well to be able to build Web3 games on Clayton.
David, I've noticed you have a great list of governing councils that validates your networks that include like LG, Binance, Gumi, WorldPay, and obviously your parent company, Kakao. So with a strong list of backers, how can you help building the global adoptions for dApp in the GameFi metaverse creator economies areas?
Yeah, our thesis is that there is a high degree of Web 2 coming into Web 3, but they are looking for trusted partners in the Web 3 space to be able to bring their use cases to. And so, listing off some of those governance council members, I think it's a good indication that they feel okay to be bringing their brand, their reputation, their use cases to Clayton. And we continue to see this even outside of our current governance council members with some of the new ones that we're trying to bring in from overseas. So, as a part of my remit to globalize Clayton, we are looking to add more. Currently we have about 30 to 33 governance council members, but we're looking to add closer to 50 and bringing in more from around the globe. So recently, over the last 3 to 6 months, we also signed on Alameda as a governance council member. We signed on Jump Trading as a governance council member, and there'll be several more very large, sort of more international, what we call GC members that'll come on. And with them, what we do is we work with them to bring, a Web3 platform for them to safely build their use cases. So we have a very strong relationship with these governance council members.
Great. So, and also lastly, so here, since we are already in Japan, and Japan is definitely part of your global expansion plan, can you tell us a little bit more about your current plan in the Japan markets? How you're planning to expand here?
We're really excited about Japan, again, because our focus is in on two of our focal points are gaming and entertainment. So Japan has, as most of us know, a long history with the gaming industry, with lots of very large listed companies here who are getting involved with blockchain, backing blockchains like Oasis, who we have invested in and we also are partners with. So what we're looking to do here is really just be supportive in working with our partners to create more of a corridor between Japan and Korea in pooling gaming assets, as well as looking at opportunities to leverage the liquidity in Korea for Japan gaming companies and projects, but also to look at opportunities where we can take content IP in Japan and Korea, digitize them, and again, pool those assets. We think by doing that, we can by creating this corridor between Japan and Korea for Web3, we think we can really compete against the US market in terms of high quality assets that people will be looking to acquire.
Great, thanks so much for sharing. So if anyone is actually building your dApp in the space of GameFi or Metaverse, and you're looking for resources, especially in Korean markets, and a lot of like supports from the big conglomerates and also like tier one like blockchain big players in the space. You can actually, please consider like Clayton to build upon. They definitely like will support a lot of support, just like they support IBS. So I think David will probably follow the next round panel sessions with the rest of the other like blockchains to talk about like how each other is actually supporting each other in the whole ecosystem, or in how they can actually support their own ecosystems, since like interoperability, it's probably the key directions for all the blockchains is actually coming together. So
if I can just add, if anyone's interested in Clayton, our website is www.clayton.foundation. You can take a look. On Twitter, we are at Clayton, I forgot our Twitter handle. It's at Clayton Official. Sorry, too many conferences, too many meetings. This is what happens. At Clayton Official. How could I forget that? So please look us up and reach out to us through one of those avenues if you have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, great. So let's welcome like the rest of the layer one protocols or blockchains, since like we're probably gonna say they are actually sidechain. Okay.
Good morning. I'm Kevin from Polygon. I lead developer relations for APAC region. Really excited. I think we're gonna have a great chat with some of our friends here. I'm gonna be sort of moderating the session in a sense that I'm gonna throw some questions, tough ones of course, and they're gonna answer them, and then I'm gonna chip in with Polygon's view and discuss this started. Dave, would you like to give a quick introduction of yourself?
I've already given mine, so I'm going to pass it off.
Round two.
Sure, I'll go. I'm Ratan from Asta Network. I'm in charge of ecosystem development. Nice to be here and speaking with all the great guys here. Looking forward.
Sorry. I'm Dominic from Solana. I lead business development for Solana Foundation. Pleasure to meet you all.
Awesome. So let's start with what are you guys doing in Japan? Like what's Clayton doing? What's A-Star doing? What's Solana doing? What's Polygon doing? Maybe Dave, would you like to start?
I've already given I'll pass it off to the...
You spoke about a lot, Devin. Sure. So Asta Network is actually founded by a Japanese called Sota Watanabe. It should be famous in Japan already. We have actually started to integrate for Japanese market just recently. We built a consortium for Japanese companies to join the blockchain environment a few weeks ago. So we do have some members who live in Japan and trying to explore how big corporates and all the startups can enjoy the global market feeling for the crypto.
So at Solana, we're really just breaking into Japan more seriously now that COVID restrictions are starting to get loose. We're starting to come down. We hosted a hacker house here in end of May, and we're pretty excited about setting up some more workshops and maybe some more hackathons to get more Web2 developers or help more Web2 developers transition to Web3.
Yeah, cool. For Polygon, I think I've done like an opening for the hack house like yesterday. We're kind of really into this Japan market because we think there's so much potential. There's so many talented builders, I mean, look around you, right? Everyone from all around the world, we're using Japanese technology, Japanese brand, Japanese infrastructure. And for Web3, to push Web3 to the masses for Polygon, we need all sorts of talented builders. That's why we're here. And we want to do more in terms of like similar stuff like hackathons, learning, when it comes from education to helping your project succeed. So that is, in essence, what Polygon is trying to do in Japan. So I've shared my views on that. I think we can cover a little bit on what kind of different stuff, the ecosystem from your chain or what you guys are doing that you think are helping the developers, helping the builders in this scene, but they should know of. I think maybe you'd like to expand a little bit on that. We'll start with Dom then.
So how we're helping the scene more globally rather than just Japan specifically?
Yeah, sure.
Sure, okay. So I think on a global scale, on a macro scale, there's a few things that we're excited to do. And recently, similar to the team at Polygon, we've decided to expand into mobile. That's probably one of the frontiers that Web3 or crypto has always struggled to bridge. And it's kind of weird that we all kind of spend all our time on desktops, right? Staring at Twitter or staring at some centralized exchange maybe. But we've never been able to have a great experience on mobile, whether it be because of the App Store and friction in trying to get adoption there, or having to always go through a web browser even when we're using mobile. So together with Polygon, we're probably going to give it a try to push the boundaries forward and try to create a model and a foundation for what that could look like. We might succeed, we might fail, but hopefully we can build a foundation there which other teams can come in and build on thereafter. Beyond that, there's always ongoing efforts when it comes to education and providing a platform for Web2 developers to transition to Web3. I think just helping teams go from 0 to 1, whether it be from funding, whether it be for legal structuring, whether it be for go-to-market, and maybe understanding use cases within Web3 and what actually makes sense versus what might be a little bit too idealistic, is typically where we try to come in and help out teams.
Got it. Any of you want to go next?
I think you should speak about the mobile part.
Yeah. So it's purely coincidental, I think. We have like similar ideas because one of it is everyone's on your mobile phone all the time, right? So I believe all of us here, we kind of share the goal of pushing Web3 forward. We're not talking about only the DJs using this stuff. We're talking about how do we bring this to the masses. It's us against the world in that sense. And what better way to try to experiment in that regard in mobile strategy. And on top of that, ecosystem-wise, we're doing a lot. This is just onboarding users, when we talk about users, it's just not just end users, it includes corporations, enterprises, it includes builders, and we're looking at it from a very holistic point of view how our entire ecosystem can help. Take builders, for example, developers, we have all sorts of support, taking them from similarly 0 to 1, which is like from no idea, no skill, developers, builders, people who wants to build a project, to actually getting successful projects with traction, right? Actually solving the problem in real life. And that is really important. And along the way, we have Polygon Village with all these resources for free, grants, everyone gives grants, audit vouchers, and then with the education part, all sorts of workshops, hackathon we're really happy to do with IVS recently, and all sorts of things come together, and then support, incubation, accelerator. I think we're all kind of looking at it from a more holistic point of view, that how we can take you guys from 0 to 1. And that is a lot of what Polygon is trying to do right now, because it's not about us. It's about the builders, it's about the users.
That's a great speech. Yeah, for Aster, we have the two big things for the builders. two big functions for the builds. One is having the WebAssembly virtual machine environment for the developers to Web2 developers to actually perform what they want to make in the blockchain world. It has been dominated by EVM until now, but as a parachain for Polkadot, which I think WebAssembly is the next future of the blockchain. We are trying to build a builder's environment for those who have been innovating in the Web2 world. And another thing is what we've been seeing from the crypto is that not necessarily like issuing tokens and sharing the governance, not necessarily support the developer in a good way. A lot of times what they have to face is a lot of development fees on trying to deploy the contract and sustain their service. So what we came up with is a function called dApp staking, where users can stake their Aster native tokens for dApp state support, and developers can earn the passive income from those staking, so that they can sustain their service without like consideration of monetizing through the service. So that's a big part of our function.
For us, we're more Asia focused. We're not as globally out there like Solana or Polygon. And for us, really, that is our strategy. Really, we want to focus in on Asia. At this stage, we are pretty much the only layer 1 left in Asia. Unless you think that Zilliqa or Neo or these guys are making a big splash. But really for us, we tend to focus specifically on trying to create a journey and an onboarding for an easy onboarding for Web2 developers to come into Web3. We do that by, as I mentioned earlier, creating specifically for gaming as well as we have a metaverse package as well for people who want to build into these virtual persistent environments, very much easy open source toolkits for them to come through. Again, we have a plethora of really good documentation around that. And at the end of the day, what we want to try and do is get as many of the Web2 developers to come into Web3 and to get rid of a lot of the brain damage that people face on the developer side when they're trying to onboard into crypto. And so our engineering team, that's really what they focus in on, is that developer journey and onboarding and trying to make that seamless.
Really like that, really. I think it's an ongoing thing that all of us are trying to solve, which is to make it easier for these guys. They're trying to build. All we can do is empower and really help them smooth the process. So that's why when builders for Polygon, we try to give as much support as we can, no matter the grassroots or if you're Web 2 to Web 3, we have certain pipeline. So we I think you kind of touched a little bit on that, Dave, which is really important, which is like enterprise, that as well. So I think it's really important that we kind of look at it in general, how we can do this together. So the next question is supposed to be like, what are you guys doing to attract builders? I think, David, you have basically covered this part. Would you like to take next?
Sure. Especially since we are holding this conference in Japan, I'll speak for the Japanese companies. As I said before, since we have a founder from Japan, and it's one of the only public blockchain founded by Japanese. We get a lot of traction from Japanese major companies, and of course gaming, and also consumer brand, as well as all the industry leaders. We're trying to connect let them understand what Web3's native philosophies are, as well as how development goes for, generally, because it's a lot different environment from Web2. We're trying to build network those large corporates with the startups who are performing well in the global scale by providing a space where you can jump in and study, as well as network between those startups and large corporates by, we call it Aster Japan Lab. That's one of the big initiatives we're holding.
Yeah, for us, I'd say we're doing like a mix of online and offline events. So over the past 6 to 12 months or so, we've been doing a series of hacker houses across different cities across the globe. So this has kind of just been a way for us to activate, meet some of the communities in person, and actually, I guess, show people who we are and what it is that we're trying to build, but also help people get through those early stages of writing their first smart contract on Solana, or maybe getting unblocked on some sort of technical issue that they've had as they've been building out their particular protocol on top of Solana. Outside of that, during COVID, obviously physical events were pretty tough. So we did a lot of online hackathons, which we're continuing to do, and that's been pretty great. We've had thousands of registrations each time and hundreds of projects built each time, and from the first one to the latest hackathon, gradually seeing better and more progress as people start to get more and more familiar with Solana and its development stack. And I think like a lot of these things aren't secrets. A lot of different protocols, Polygon, Clayton, Astar, all kind of utilize similar techniques. It's really just about consistency and dedicating effort and resources towards it.
Yep, thank you. For Polygon, we're basically very much the same thing in the sense that we don't just do events, we do events, of course. We're looking at also preparing the process to help you learn better. Like we have an online academy called Polygon Academy. That's very important if you're into trying to learn how to build on EVM and things like that. You should definitely check that out. And then we're kind of looking at what's next, right? After that, you can go to a workshop, hackathons. We do hackathons all around the world. Recently in Japan, in Tokyo, like last week with IBS. And on top of that, we currently have a virtual hackathon going on. So if anyone's interested, please go for it. It's called Build It. With more than $500,000 worth of prizes worth. So yeah, that's basically what we're trying to do, touch the builders, talk to the builders. And one thing we're really focusing on is we would love to hear from developers, builders, startup founders, what do you need? Because we don't come from an arrogant standpoint that, hey, we know all the answers to all the questions, right? We are here. We want to listen. We want to hear what you have in mind. So please let us know if there's anything else we can do. We have actually another question coming up, which is, I think, very relevant to a lot of our strategies here, especially Clayton and Polygon, is that how do you plan, because to onboard the next billion users onto Web3, we have all these current Web2 distribution channels right here. Right? How do we leverage on it? Is there any strategy strategically are you guys planning to leverage, bring Web2 people onto Web3? Anyone want to expand on that? I think David covered a lot of that. Oh, you want to expand a little bit more?
Maybe I'll just add a couple lines there. Like, I think right now, the onboarding experience for a user for crypto is horrible. Right, like even for gaming, like you have to download the wallet, you have to buy the tokens, and the whole integration process is horrible. And I think this winter is going to be great for people focusing in on building more to smoothen that transition for users, is the general feeling I get. I mean, this was the impression I got from being at Consensus in Austin and speaking to a bunch of people, and then being at NFT New York and speaking to a bunch of people, I feel like this winter in particular will be very good because everyone seems focused in on really trying to bring more mainstream on board, right? I mean, we're all talking about it here as well. So I am looking forward to not just what we're doing. I mean, obviously we're contributing to this into our own ecosystem, but what all the other layer ones are going to do to smoothen that transition for the common user. You know, again, when we look at gaming, I don't think we're going to get any more gamers to come unless we're building really good games. And I don't think, even if we do build good games, if it causes a tremendous amount of brain damage just to play the game because you have to, you know, go through 20 hoops, I think it's going to make that experience awful. So I'm really looking forward to the back of this winter to see how everything gets built out in that regard.
Right. I think what we found from a lot of blockchain games spawned from in past year or two is that a lot of gamers doesn't really care about earning money, actually. So as Dave said, the current process of forcing people to make a wallet and buy token to start with is really a bad experience for them. And what I realized from speaking with gamers in the industry is that they don't really care. Like the US dollar value or the JPY value of the tokens or the games they own. They want to experience the token, like incentivized motivation for growing within the game, or actually the game changing their lifestyle through the game. So I think I'm looking forward to smart innovators in the ecosystem to actually integrate that part into gaming and make something new for the mass to adopt.
Yeah, I think you touched on a pretty good point. I think, like, fundamentally the game should be good. They should be fun to play, right? That's why you play games. And then the other part of that is, like, the powerful elements here are, like, digital identity, right? And I think, ultimately, Web3, when combined with games, should allow us to deepen that engagement with people that sort of like play these games, not so much about, you know, some sort of financial reward or incentive at the end of the road. So hopefully we get there sooner rather than later, and we get more infrastructure that allows us to bridge that gap so that there isn't wallet friction or seed phrases and all these things which are quite alien to mum and dads or folks that are coming from Web 2. Outside of that, I guess, I'll probably expand on the phone thing just a little bit more. I think the interesting thing as well is with mobile, whether it be for Solana or for any other chain, it actually brings in a lot of Java developers. Depending on type of developer frameworks that we end up building, allowing people to build Web3 applications on mobile, I think it actually brings in a whole swath of developers that have previously been sidelined. Maybe that's a little bit optimistic, but I do think there's a decent amount of truth to that. And it might take time for people to actually see these phones get some level of traction before they eventually dive in. But I'd like to, I'm pretty hopeful, and from what we've seen so far, I expect a lot of people to at least come in and experiment over the next 6 to 12 months, so we get a good feel for what that looks like. Beyond that, I think simply providing people a framework and providing places for people to learn more about crypto, whether it be through local meetups in different regions like in Tokyo or other cities, and giving that touch point to some potential Web3 curious people, is how we're looking to bring more Web2 developers on board into Web3.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've covered a lot in terms of gaming, in terms of mobile. We're very much aligned there. This is what we see. Would like to just expand a little bit beyond that, is that because we talked about this a little bit back then, is that we're very early in the stage where we're still experimenting, right? We're taking this as small little experiments, different channels, things like that. Well, maybe not very early in terms of token price, but definitely early in terms of actual user adoption, actual use cases, actual utilities today. So we're also experimenting in terms of leveraging of existing Web2 communities. For example, we work with Meta. Instagram is going to launch NFTs, so for the first batch of NFTs is going to be Ethereum Polygon. And we kind of look at that as a gateway for people. Instagram has 1.4 billion users. And these people hopefully are going to become potential users of whatever dApps Web3 people are building on, because these are the gateways that make it incredibly easy to ease in. And these are some of the things our business development team is working really hard on as well, trying to test all these different strategies and tactics and trying to bring the world into Web3, which is what we want. So yeah, just want to expand a little bit on that. Robin, you have something to add?
Yeah, since we've talked about, like, I think we can all agree that gaming and the social networking part are emerging already to the crypto world. I would like to hear all your opinions about what other industries can foresee to emerge to the blockchain world. Do you guys have any idea?
Yeah, I spoke earlier about entertainment. We really like that. That's a focal point for us. We think there's a lot of content IP out there that can be digitized and then redistributed through the existing Web2 infrastructure in terms of getting that out to the masses. So yeah, that's another reason why we like Japan. Japan, obviously, outside of gaming, has a ton of interesting content IP, and to go through a digitization journey and bring that through the distribution infrastructure, like I said, of some of these large Web2 companies, that could be really interesting. The other thing that we are recently starting to think about at Clayton, and Vitalik wrote a piece on this, decentralized societies. We think this is kind of the next DAOs and decentralized societies. We like those areas, and we're keeping a close eye out on what's happening there. So yeah, that's kind of a summary of the things that we think outside of gaming that are interesting.
For us, I'd say one that I'm particularly excited about is probably payments. I feel like value transfer across borders and settlement is still probably one of the most powerful use cases that is most aligned with Web3, actually. Amongst other things, for sure, but I do think that has been one thing that has stood the test of time, ever since Bitcoin was founded, and across the development over the past decade or so. So I'd love to see more adoption on that front, but it's obviously a market that has a lot of intermediaries, a lot of regulation, so it's going to be slow moving, but it's one area where I'd love to see more growth and more adoption.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, these are really interesting verticals, industries that we think can really be helped with Web3, right? All about decentralization, security. And like for payments, we have, interestingly, a zero-knowledge rollout coming up that's very much focused on payments. So we're really excited about that as well. It's called Hermes. And of course, enterprise use cases is another thing that is maybe not as exciting, like not for everyday people, but then there are different enterprise use cases that we're kind of really bullish on using Web3, blockchain technology that can help in a sense. And we really have another roll-up that's working with Ernst & Young, and that's really interesting as well. And different enterprise use cases, because again, we don't kind of come with a one-size-fits-all, because it doesn't work that way. That is our point of view. It might be wrong, but that is our point of view, that we don't come like, we have this one answer, here's the answer to all the questions, hey, that's it, and slap it in. But we're kind of like looking at it that, hey, these are the specific pain points of this industry. These are the specific problems that we can solve with this particular feature of the blockchain. And then we kind of reverse engineer the process looking at that. That's why you see Polygon has a lot of scaling solutions that's why we call ourselves scaling solution to help Ethereum scale. And we're looking at it from different points of view, that all these different solutions are gonna get the job done the most efficient way. That is how we look at things right now, at least at Polygon. But yeah, I guess we still have a little bit of time. I'm finished with the questions they sent me, so we can probably talk a little bit about what are you most bullish on, or what are your thoughts about the industry moving forward, things like that. We're just gonna chat a little bit. Anyone would like to start with that?
I like keeping an eye out on the work around the infrastructure, whether it's oracles or IPFS. I think these two areas in particular are quite interesting, because as they evolve and develop, for instance with oracles, we're going to see a lot more mainstream in dynamic NFTs and more metadata coming from off-chain to on-chain to create, things like intraday real-time valuations on assets, and I think that could be quite intriguing. IPFS, as the open source community starts to develop more scalability around storage, what I get excited about is we're going to get into scenarios where you can now take music that, on average is about 2.5 minutes, and be able to store that on chain as an NFT, and really then start moving towards a direction of being able to disrupt Spotify. And then as we expand that even further, the Nirvana state is being able to store as much as you want in the storage space or in the storage infrastructure, that you can even create movies. And if we ever get there, I know it's a lot, it's very far away, but if we ever get there, then we're really able to go after the Netflix. But most importantly, you have provenance in terms of the royalties that feed back to the creators of this. And, for us, as I mentioned earlier, the creator economy is very important to us, and so we want to continue to invest in these areas.
Yeah, great point. I think disrupting the current commission fee market is a big part of the blockchain, and I think as a gamer personally, I must mention to the change for the gaming industry for the bullish for my thesis. I think there will be a lot of social games, quality blockchain games coming up this year and early next year. And once they are published and started to adopt to the mass, there will be a lot of pressure for the app stores or Steam, those gaming publishing platform, to change the way of what they're doing right now. And I think there will be a lot of new platform that reinforce those blockchain games to be more natively touchable for the public mass. And I'm looking into those technology to come in.
I'm personally bullish on infrastructure, and I think some of the technologies that are coming out, I'm actually really bullish on and really excited to see how zero knowledge plays out in the space. There's been a ton of great research, a ton of great teams that are exploring it, and I feel like it's it's always been this technology that's been very hyped, but it's always kind of eluded us in terms of like having some sort of practical implementation. But it seems like multiple teams, excluding Solana, are actually exploring this, and I want to see how this plays out and how it makes a difference in terms of scalability or storage or whichever application they end up using it for, because it touches multiple aspects of Web3. I'm also pretty excited about or bullish on new NFT use cases, which I think people haven't started exploring just yet. Some of which Dave touched on just earlier around like IP and licensing, but I think there's also a ton of other ways that people can be interacting with NFTs. For example, recently there's a project within the Solana ecosystem trying to tackle executable NFTs, where you could actually have NFTs be kind of your one-stop shop, your identity, but also your wallet, all within one application. But also other applications, whether it be ones that are a bit more traditional, like ticketing, and having secondary sales go back to event organizers. Easy, like low-hanging fruit, which I'd love to see people experiment with and try to get some traction. And for us to move beyond just simple PFPs and like digital identity, and really take that to the extreme and start to integrate this in a more thoughtful way into some of the metaverses that we're seeing today. And I think we're starting to get there. Just meeting a lot of teams that are exploring this and really thinking about how they can create vibrant metaverses and communities and get people involved. So I think those are the main takeaways for me.
Got it. I think very much share the same views. You guys did great covering most of the stuff. Obviously the big ones are like infrastructure, technology-wise, and then from use cases-wise, right? It's like utility NFTs. Those are really interesting to see in the next few weeks, few months, now that it's crypto winter, sorta, that the noise is not here now. It's quiet. But we're still here. We're builders. You guys are builders. That's why you're here. And really excited to see what's going to happen in the next months, next weeks, months, and years, because we're still early in actual adoption. That's what I truly believe. I think this is what we've been seeing so far. Let's not treat it as a whole big Ponzi game, but rather than an actual problem-solving business project that can cater to the masses. And together we can make this space a better one. Bigger one and a better one for everyone. So yeah, that's basically very much what we're supposed to do here. And thank you so much, guys. Had a great chat. Had a great time. You guys, anyone want to do a quick sum up or anything?
I think all of us, we were talking in the back, we're excited to be in Japan. This conference has been really eye-opening in terms of seeing Japan sort of really wake up to Web3, and we're really excited about that because this iteration of crypto is really palatable for the Japanese economy, again, because of the content IP and gaming and whatnot. So I think, it's safe to say all four of us here are very excited to really see how Japan moves forward with Web3. And thank you.
Oh, I totally agree. I feel like it's been reinvigorating. I feel like there's like a new wave coming through of excitement for some of the developers in Japan, and also pretty exciting to see regulators starting to come around and have open conversations about how they can improve regulation and support entrepreneurs and developers within the region, which I know the Astar team has been kind of leading the charge on. I think Sota's been speaking to some of the ministers, right?
Yeah, right. Actually, I was really surprised as a person who's been living in Japan for a while and being a startup ecosystem for a while. I'm really surprised to see those FSAs and the government entities coming into the conference like this and trying to catch up how younger generations or the startups are thinking. And I think that's the trigger that we can see that Japanese government is actually thinking about this and changing. And I would I think Sota's contribution to making the difference has been big, and I think as an Aster team, we will continue to proceed with regulators or the government entities on how we can change the Japanese industries to actually have enough competition in a global scale.
Yeah, like I can sum it up in just like, to be honest, we're all pretty bullish on Web3, we're pretty bullish on Japan and LFG. Let's go.